Now, as a math educator, some of the interesting challenges is how do you make your materials to be a little bit more interactive with your students. Let's say, for example, in here we have a Google Doc, or in this case, you can, in this platform, use Microsoft Word, and you have all this information that you've already created in terms of just looking at linear graphs, two algebraic equations in terms of this format. Now, this might be definitely a little bit of a challenge in terms of developing the table of values, in making it more interactive for your students. And then next here is an algebraic equation to that of determining the values. This here is a way by which, according to this particular resource here, by which you can transform this into something that looks like this. Nope, not that. Like this on a specific type of workspace, which is in this case known as your Google form. And so by using this here, and we will show you how to transform that particular Microsoft Word to a Google form, but that way your students can actually engage with the material and get more insight as a teacher into the process behind and the use of both tools for your students to actually be much more engaged in their math material. So let's begin. Now, during the process of creating this particular Microsoft Word, I came across a specific error which involves one of the graph here initially, which looked like this. And so what I did here was I noticed that in here the scales were not proper in terms of going from 1 to 3 to 5 to 7 and to 9 on my y-axis. And so what I did was I went back to where I created this, which is on my Microsoft PowerPoint, where what I did was I rearranged it in such a way that it is much more reasonable in terms of the scaling, and then I've rearranged my points in such a way that if I draw a trend line, it continues down to the -1 at the y region. And so when I was able to do that, what I did was I screenshot this. On our next video I'll talk about how I developed this for sure. And what I did was that I screenshot it, which looks like this, and then what I did is I copied, and then I went back to my Microsoft Word, and once I copied it, I was able to remove this particular part here, which is the initial picture, and hit blank space and Control V, and now I have the proper image here that represents this proper scaling for this particular system here. So take note that as I adjust this, my numbers or my specific results that are written down using this particular tool doesn't actually move away from where they were positioned. So that's really awesome. Keeping the formatting here consistent, this is how it's supposed to look like, and then I'm good to go. Now the next part here is going from my specific Microsoft Word here to now putting it or developing it in my specific Google form. And this here means that the images here has to be transferred over. And now for me to accomplish that, let's say for example here we're going to be choosing number 3, and there are some errors I made here that I made adjustment to, as we see in the previous image, which looked like this, which doesn't have the compression symbol here. But now I introduced that as my corrected version, which is what I have right here. And so this here is a little bit much more accessible for my students to actually understand and get the work done. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to go down to save as picture, and once I hit save, I know where it is located. And so when I'm going back to retrieve the information, I'll be able to pull it off seamlessly. And so once this is done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide this, and here is my Google form that I'm going to be developing that particular information at. So splitting my screen into two parts, where on this side here we have the Microsoft Word, and I'm going to transfer some key information or questions over to the other side, which is the Google form, and in here on the right side, which is the Google form, I have a template I'm going to working with. I like it for sure, which not only asks you the following questions, like for example here, what is the title of the term number, the term value. In here we have what is the equation that best fits this particular graph, and finally here is what is the value for this term number here. So there'll be some little edits here that we're going to make, and to accomplish this, first is I go to the section here, and what I'm going to do is duplicate the section, and once I click on it, then I'm able to scroll all the way down and develop my question graph 3, which is going to be edited now in terms of showing the relationship over here between the payment, or I would say the time in month, to that of the payment of car. And so once I have this here, I'm good to go in terms of now going over to the next section here. This part here, I can just highlight everything here and Control C, copy, and then here just Control V, and it's ready to go. Next part is to change the image here by clicking on these three dots here and clicking on change. It takes me to using the upload version, where I'm going to retrieve that image that I created for this particular image here. And so to accomplish that, just find it, and there we have it. Click on it, open, and voila, it's going to be published right over there. Now once I have this, now I can continue editing by putting down the following questions in terms of what is the title of the term number. In this case, I'm going to be having the answer to be the one at the bottom. Is up to you. In this case here, I'm going to just type in time in month, and on the other hand here, this here will be payment for a car in dollars. And so once I have that, the other part here is the opposite here. Next part here is for this part, which involves the algebraic equation that best fits this particular model. Here I'm just going to edit by changing the image. This here is where your students can actually go back and forth in terms of not only developing the table of values, but also creating the algebraic expression in this worksheets. And so that is what the instruction is stated over here. By that way, once you're able to accomplish this particular stage, I'll move on to the next stage over here involving the algebraic equation from the expression. Then they can now pick the correct options here. So all these options here are true, and some others not really true to this particular scenario. So we're going to make some edit here to make one of them actually true for this particular relationship here. And in here now, I've activated a specific tool, in this case equation, where I can put in equations that students cannot misunderstand an x to multiplication sign. So in order for you to accomplish that, what we do is click on this icon here, and this here will take us to the equation app at the bottom, and then we can begin by typing up our equation, which is right here, by editing the math. Or you can click on this, and this will take us to what you're going to type up here. And so in here, I'm going to start by saying that yes, y is equal to, let's start with negative 20 as our slope, and this here is multiplied by x, and then we add 100, which means that it is our initial value. And so once you hit on copy, or we hit on insert math, and here is going to do its little AI analysis, and it should insert it right at the bottom over here. Now the same thing here is going to be applicable for option 2, but in here I'm going to put, you know what, positive here, but here will be, this will be negative, just to throw some student off, And so once I click on insert math, it is good to go. And then next is I'm going to switch the rule here instead to option 3, where I'm going to, instead have 20, I'm going to put, let's say, 100, and on the other side here I'm going to put positive 20 as my initial value. And once I have that, I'm going to hit on the insert math, And final one here is trying the actual answer to the question, which is by, in this case, showing it to be yes 20 here, and that is our slope. And finally we have 100. So once the students are typing up all the results here and putting in the algebraic expression, once they see that they have the 100 as the initial value, which corresponds to the plus 100, and then you're going 20 up each time, that means that you're going to have this option to be the correct option. Now to edit which one is correct or not here, what we do is click on the answer key, and we are going to change this for that over there. And once you hit done, you have your result right here based on the equation. And the final one here is, how about we're going to be looking at the term number to be 50, but in this case, instead of buying 50 pencils and looking for the price, we're going to look at our graph here by changing it, of course, to the actual one that we're looking at. What is the total payment of the car? 50 for the term number in that equation. And so we have a couple of options here. We have 80, we have 90. I'm going to remove them, and I'm going to put in new numbers here that aligns with that equation and the results. So putting 50 here means that you have 1,000 plus 100, that is 1,100. Here is how we are able to develop our Google form from our information gathered from the worksheet question created on Word. So a couple of honorable observations here includes the following in terms of, yes, not only clicking on the final answer and recognizing that the E is the final answer, but one of the most incredible things to keep in mind here is the following. It's really difficult to develop a table of values here on your Google form, so it's highly suggested that you instruct your students here in this particular format here to use this particular template in order for them to complete this particular activity here. And second here is that for some students that actually are major students that show that work here, it's really nice for them to actually see that for every step of the way here in terms of developing the equation based on the input values that they gathered from this graph over to the table of values, it actually is correct when they are clicking on the options here. And so once they are able to cross-check this here helps them to be able to be much more efficient in terms of problem solving involving linear graph to an algebraic equation. And finally, here is when they are solving for the actual value from the term number. When they solve it and they check that the answer here is correct, then it means that they are able to understand and be able to quickly get a fantastic response rather than actually going back and asking you, the teacher. This saves you a lot of time in terms of you reaching out to other students that may be struggling, while others that actually got the answer right, they can move on without actually coming up to you to ask whether they are correct or wrong. So these resources will be available on Teachers Pay Teachers. Check that out for sure. You can check it in the description below, and I hope you found this really informative. If you have other ideas in terms of how you can develop a linear graph to algebraic expression on your Google form, and how you can leverage tools like this alongside that of your Google Microsoft Word, or you can say Google Docs, you can share your thoughts about this or your experience about this in the comment section down below. By that way, I could talk to you soon. Stay smart as always, and believe in yourselves.